Hi, and welcome to your Craftbox video on The Great Gatsby. Today we're really going to look at the ways that Fitzgerald embeds a metaphor without ever stating it clearly, and how that sort of develops both the setting and the characters. So we're going to take a look at a moment somewhat early in the text where Nick, the narrator, arrives at the Buchanan's house for the first time. So first, we're going to take a look at the setting of the Buchanan's house, and we're really going to see how, as Nick approaches this family, he starts to realize that they are a family of wealth, but also potentially a careless family. He really realizes how careless they are and how much their wealth insulates them later in the book, but all of that is kind of foreshadowed in this beautiful moment that we're going to look at today. So next, let's talk a little bit about the situation. So when he's visiting their house for the first time, he's aware that there's this Daisy figure that is really important to his neighbor Gatsby, but he really doesn't understand the reason why or what is so enthralling about her. And so the setting is really to introduce us to them, to their lifestyle, but also to introduce us to Daisy and kind of what her leading characteristics are. It's a lot to get to happen all at once, and the amazing thing about Fitzgerald is he does it through his diction. So diction is what we mean by word choice, and he's specifically choosing a lot of language that's associated with boats. Being on the water, this being set out on Long Island, out in the Hamptons, the dock, everyone's houses being on the water, all of this becomes pretty significant. In fact, in Gatsby's own life, Dan Cody's yacht on the water was a significance for him. So there's a real sense that water has brought on this new world and this new lifestyle, which kind of evokes how the whole American dream was really brought on by water. People sailed here, they docked, and they pursued their new realities. So now that we're sort of set up for the situation, we can take a look at the mentor text. I really want you to notice how he's suggesting a metaphor without directly stating one. He starts with this sentence: "A breeze blew through the room, blew curtains in at one end and out the other like pale flags." So that's where we're at, and these curtains are flowing in and out of the room. I imagine kind of a wall of windows and these curtains moving. He continues, "The only completely stationary object in the room was an enormous couch on which two young women were buoyed up as though upon an anchored balloon." So you have all of these images of flight, the idea that they're floating with the word buoy. They were both in white, and their dresses were rippling and fluttering as if they had just been blown back in after a short flight around the house. So the women themselves sort of evoke the snap of sails. And then he continues with, "I must have stood for a few moments, listening to the whip and snap of the curtains and the groan of a picture on the wall." Now, that's kind of interesting in that I really think that he's really extending the metaphor beyond reality here. I'm not sure why a picture on the wall would have groaned, but I think the groaning is metaphorical language from this idea of a ship. Then there was a boom as Tom Buchanan shut the rear window. The caught wind died out about the room, and the curtains and the rugs and the two young women ballooned slowly to the floor. So you have this whole scene where these women are almost seen as kind of sails in a sailboat. They're sort of taking flight, and they're not really tethered to anything. And then when Tom Buchanan's introduced, he's the one that grounds everyone, that grounds the women, that pulls them down from their flight. So all of this is going to somewhat foreshadow what happens in the story, but all of it is suggested just with these words: buoyed, anchored, rippling, fluttering, whip, snap, groaned, ballooning. So all of this is just suggested. It's actually never said. The word sailboat is never said. So this is what we call an embedded metaphor, and it's really powerful. So now let's think for a moment about what might have inspired this diction, this word choice. Here's a little clip of some sailboat sounds. So you can really get a sense of the groan that happens under the mast that's being blown from the tautness of the sails. And all of that is being evoked by these women and this wind that's blowing about across the room. It's really a beautiful, beautiful piece of writing. So, next up, I think it would be great for you to give this a shot. So here are some steps that I've developed for how to fuse a metaphor into a setting. First of all, think of an actual place, right, that you want to describe for your work. You use all of your five senses. Think about it like you're looking at a picture. Then completely wipe that from your mind and think of a completely different place. It could be a boat scene like Fitzgerald, or the sounds of a locker room, the smells of the mall, the way that a court looks for like basketball game, a library, a roller coaster, something. But you want to take all of the language you can find, which is step 3. So look online, find all the language associated with roller coasters or whatever your alternate scene is from step 2. And then you're going to return to your setting, and you're going to try to describe your setting, not saying that my living room is the basketball court while my parents are fighting, but instead describe the living room using the sounds, the smells, the movements of the basketball court in order to infuse that energy into the setting and the people in that setting, which is what Fitzgerald's done here. So good luck with your imitation of the embedding of a metaphor in Great Gatsby, and I hope that you found this craft box helpful. Think about subscribing. Thanks very much.